Hello students, let us begin reading the second part of chapter 2, Lost Spring, from your textbook Flamingo. The title of this part of chapter 2 is I Want to Drive a Car. Let's begin reading. I want to drive a car. Mukesh insists on being his own master. I will be a motor mechanic, he announces. Do you know anything about cars? I ask. I will learn to drive a car, he answers, looking straight into my eyes. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fill his town, Firozabad, famous for its bangles. Every other family in Firozabad is engaged in making bangles. It is the center of India's glass-blowing industry, where families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for all the women in the land, it seems. So the writer, she met this boy named Mukesh who aspired to become a motor mechanic, and the narrator asked him if he knew anything about cars, if he had any knowledge about the cars. To which this boy Mukesh replies that he would learn to drive a car, and now when he says so, he says it with a lot of confidence, looking straight into the eyes of the author, of the narrator. Further, through the narrator, we come to know about Mukesh that his dream to become a motor mechanic and his dream to drive a car was very far away from reality. And although this boy Mukesh was confident that one day he would be able to fulfill his dream, but the reality is that gradually he would give in to the societal pressures. Okay, gradually he will fall into the trap of the traditional or of the profession that the family has been following since years. Okay, so as it is told that he lived in Firozabad, which was famous for glass bangles, and so the writer felt that the boy's dream would not materialize and would not take any shape and would gradually get influenced by the dusty streets of Firozabad, which was famous for bangle making. See, here the narrator wanted to say that as every family in the town of Firozabad was involved in the glass bangle industry, and so since everyone was involved in this industry, bangle making industry, so Mukesh would also, with the passage of time, he would also follow the same career or follow the same tradition of bangle making. Now, the author, she tells us that Firozabad was the main town of India for the glass blowing industry, which is related to making glass. So the families of the bangle makers in Firozabad had been involved in working in furnaces. It's a closed room or container where heat is produced. So everyone was involved. The families of Firozabad were involved in bangle making, and they were involved in working in these hot furnaces. Also, they had been involved in welding glass. Welding, we all know what is that process. That is the process of joining metal or glass pieces by with the help of heat. And these families had spent generations in making bangles, and it was as if they made so many bangles that it seemed that they made bangles for all the women of the world. Okay, let us read ahead. Mukesh's family is among them. None of them know that it is illegal for children like him to work in the glass furnaces with high temperatures, in dingy cells without air and light. That the law, if enforced, could get him and all those 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces where they slog their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. So here Here, the author tells us that Mukesh's family was also involved in the profession of glass bangle making, and they did not know that it was unlawful to force children also to work in such glass hot furnaces with high temperatures, of course. So, it was basically illegal for children to work over there. So we also come to know here that the workplaces were hot, they were dark, they were closed rooms without any kind of ventilation. So it was a very harsh environment wherein they had to work. And here the writer felt that if the law would come into force, it would rescue almost 20,000 children from these inhuman places where they were forced to work hard during the daytime. Now, at the end, he says that, the author says, often losing the brightness of their eyes. So, these children, these people who work in the hot furnaces in the bangle making industry, these people often end up losing their eyesight also. Okay, further let us read. Mukesh's eyes beam as he volunteers to take me home, which he proudly says is being rebuilt. We walk down stinking lanes choked with garbage, past homes that remain hovels with crumbling walls, wobbly doors, no windows, crowded with families of humans and animals coexisting in a primeval state. He stops at the door of one such house, bangs a wobbly iron door with his foot, and pushes it open. So it's told that Mukesh was very happy as he took the writer to his home, and he felt proud as he informed the author that his house was being renovated, his house was being rebuilt. Then what happens? Then they walk down the streets which were full of garbage and they were stinking. The streets gave this foul smell. Then we come to know that the walls of these slums were falling apart. Even the doors were unsteady. Okay, wobbly doors it's told. So the doors were also unsteady. There were no windows, and these small dingy slum houses were full of families where people lived along with animals in a huge number. So it was all crowded with the people as well as animals. Now the condition of these slums reminded the writer of the primeval, of the prehistoric, I can say, of the prehistoric man who lived just like animals. Okay, now Mukesh stopped in front of one such wobbly, unstable door, and he hit it hard, and with his he hit it hard, the door, with his foot, and he pushed it open. Let's read further. We enter a half-built shack. In one part of it, thatched with dead grass, is a firewood stove over which sits a large vessel of sizzling spinach leaves. On the ground, in large aluminium platters, are more chopped vegetables. A frail young woman is cooking the evening meal for the whole family. Through eyes filled with smoke, she smiles. She is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Not much older in years, she has begun to command respect as the Bahu, the daughter-in-law of the house, already in charge of 3 men, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. So here we read that the house where Mukesh lived was roughly built. Okay, and it was a partially constructed hut. It's called a shack, okay, which is a roughly built hut. Now in the corner, it's told that there was a firewood stove made with dead grass, and there was also a vessel with spinach leaves kept in it. And on the ground, there were more plates with chopped vegetables in them. There was a thin and this is an important information, that there was a thin young woman cooking the evening meal for the family, and then it's told that her eyes were full of smoke coming out of the firewood stove, but she was still cheerful and smiled to the writer. Okay. Now, so here we come to know that she was the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Okay. So here, although this girl, it's told that she was, though the wife of Mukesh's elder brother, and she was working, taking care of the house and other chores. So although she was not much older, which of course means that she was married at a young age, and at this young age, only, she had become a more responsible person, and she was worthy to get respect from the family, of that of a bahu, that of a daughter-in-law of the family. So it's told that she was taking care of three men. Who were the three men? Her husband, that means Mukesh's elder brother, of Mukesh, and their father, of the father-in-law, of course. Let's read ahead. When the older man enters, she gently withdraws behind the broken wall and brings her wheel closer to her face. As custom demands, daughter-in-law must wheel their face before male elders. In this case, the elder is an impoverished bangle maker. Despite long years of hard labor, first as a tailor, then a bangle maker, he has failed to renovate a house, sent his two sons to school. All he has managed to do is teach them what he knows, the art of making bangles. So now Mukesh's father, as Mukesh's father entered the house, the daughter-in-law hid behind the wall, and she covered her face behind her wheel. It's a piece of fine material worn by women to hide their face from the elders, especially men. So this hiding of the face was kind of a tradition for women, for the daughter-in-laws, that too in the presence of older male members of the family. Okay, and this is what this girl also did. So the old man here was a poor bangle maker. This is what we come to know. Further, we are told that this elderly man had worked hard all his life, first as a tailor, then as a bangle maker, but he was still not able to either renovate the house or send his sons to school. So both the things he was not able to do. Though he worked hard, but he was not able to send his sons for getting education, neither was he able to renovate his house. Now, the only thing that he had managed to teach the people of Firozabad, or we can say in particularly his sons, what he has managed to teach them is the skill of making bangles. Let's read ahead. It is his karam, his destiny, says Mukesh's grandmother, who has watched her own husband go blind with the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. Can a God-given lineage ever be broken? She implies. Born in the caste of bangle makers, they have seen nothing but bangles. In the house, in the yard, in every other house, every other yard, every street in Firozabad. Spirals of bangles, sunny gold, paddy green, royal blue, pink, purple, every color born out of the 7 colors of the rainbow, lie in mounds in unkempt yards, are piled on 4-wheeled handcarts, pushed by young men along the narrow lanes of the shanty town. So here in this paragraph, Mukesh's grandmother justified her son by saying that he was destined to make bangles as it had been their family profession. Okay, and she had seen her own husband become blind due to the dust from the polishing of the glass bangles. Okay, so she here added on that their family had got this art of bangle making from God. It was God's lineage, she says. And So they had to carry on the tradition of bangle making. Then, further, it is told by the author that these people were born in a particular caste which had to follow the profession of bangle making, and all their life they had just been, they had just seen these glass bangles. Okay, it's told that these bangles were everywhere in the backyard, in the next house, in their yard, and even in the streets of the town. So Firozabad was famous for bangle making, and everywhere one could find these bangles only. Now there were huge spiral bunches of bangles. It's told in different colors like gold, green, blue, pink, purple. So there were bangles of all the colors from the rainbow. Further, the writer says that there were bangles lying in, it's written in the text, in mounds in unkept yards, which means that there were bangles even in the neglected yards also, even in the neglected areas also one could find bangles lying. Also, these bangles were piled on handcarts for sale, which were pushed or which were carried by men along the streets of Firozabad to be sold out. Okay, further let us read. And in dark hutments, next to the lines of flames of flickering oil lamps, sit boys and girls with their fathers and mothers, welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to the light outside. That is why they often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. So here the writer describes the environment where these bangle makers work, and it's told that they were small dark huts where they used to work, and these children would sit next to line of oil lamps whose flames were unsteady again. So the children along with their parents welded and learned and tried to join the pieces of colored glass into circles, which were again molded into bangles. Also, it is told that as these bangle makers spent a lot of time in the dark, therefore their eyes would not adapt to the bright sunlight. Rather, what happened, rather their eyesight was more adjustable to the darkness, and because of which, and this is the reason of why many of these children, many of these people lost their eyesight even before gaining adulthood. Further, let us read. Savita, a young girl in a drab pink dress, sits alongside an elderly woman, soldering pieces of glass. As her hands move mechanically like the tongs of a machine, I wonder if she knows the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. It symbolizes an Indian woman's suhag, auspiciousness in marriage. Now here in this paragraph we read about a young girl by the name of Savita. It's told that she wore a faded pink colored dress, and she was sitting with an elderly woman, and they were joining pieces of glass to make bangles. Then it's said that as her hands moved like a machine, like the tongs of a machine move, and at this moment the writer wondered if Savita knew the sanctity of the bangles or not, which means she wondered that whether Savita could understand and realize that the bangles were considered to be sacred, as these bangles symbolized an Indian woman's suhag. So these bangles, we can say, symbolize that these were a good omen. It's called a good omen for a woman's marriage, for a woman's wifehood, we can say. Okay, further let us read. It will dawn on her suddenly one day when her head is draped with a red veil, her hands dyed with henna, and red bangles rolled onto her wrists. She will then become a bride. like the old woman beside her who became one many years ago. She still has bangles on her wrist, but no light in her eyes. So here the narrator says that the auspiciousness, the importance of these bangles would be realized by Savita only when she would become a bride herself. And on that day she would cover her head with a red colored veil, with a red cloth, again to hide her face from the elderly people. And then it's told that she would, on that day, on the day of her marriage, she would color her hands with henna and wear red colored bangles herself, just like the elderly woman sitting next to Savita did when she became a bride many years ago. Further, it is told that the elderly woman, when though she was still wearing the glass bangles, but she had lost her eyesight now because of working in the hot furnaces, dingy cells. She had now lost her eyesight. Further, एक वक्त शेर भर खाना भी नहीं खाया, she says, in a voice drained of joy. She has not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. That's what she has reaped. Her husband, an old man with a flowing beard, says, I know nothing except bangles. All I have done is make a house for the family to live in. Hearing him, one wonders if he has achieved what many have failed in their lifetime. He has a roof over his head. Now, the elderly woman who's sitting over there with Savita, she complained that she had not eaten even a seir of food. Seir, it's a unit of measuring quantity. So this woman wants to say that they they are so poor that they cannot eat enough food, and this is the benefit that she had reaped after working so many years in the hot furnaces. This is the benefit that she has received by adopting the profession of bangle making. Now, this woman's husband, it's told that he has a flowing beard, and he says that he does not know anything other than bangle making, and all that he has been able to accomplish is to make bangles. All that he has accomplished in his life is to make a house for his family to live in. Okay, so the only profession that he's into is bangle making, and the thing that he has accomplished throughout in his life, in his entire life, is to construct a house for his family to live in. Now, the writer here then wonders that probably the old man has achieved something which many other people have not been able to achieve. And what has he achieved? At least what he has achieved, at least he has been able to secure a shelter for his family. At least he owns a house of his own. Okay, so he's able to safeguard his family, and this is the only achievement of his life, this elderly man. Okay, let's read further. The cry of not having money to do anything except carry on the business of making bangles, not even enough to eat, rings in every home. The young men echo the lament of their elders. Little has moved with time, it seems, in Firozabad. Years of mind-numbing toil have killed all initiative and the ability to dream. So this problem of not being able to have a decent meal and livelihood was prevalent in all the homes of Firozabad which carried on the profession, and they did not know anything else other than bangle making. And it did not even provide them enough to eat. This profession of bangle making even did not provide them a decent lifestyle, we can say. Then further it's said that the young men who had entered the traditional profession also had the same complaint from their elders. Okay, that though they worked hard in the furnaces for making bangles, still they were not able to earn. Still they were not able to earn a decent meal in a day. Okay, so with the passing time there has been no improvement in their condition, in the condition of the people living in Firozabad and working in the hot furnaces. And though they had been doing hard work for countless number of years, they still did not have any ability to do something else or anything else, or to dream of any other profession than bangle making. It was this god's lineage that they considered that they had to, because this profession had been there in their family since years, so therefore they believed that they had to follow the same traditional profession of bangle making. Let's read ahead. Why not organize yourself in a cooperative? I ask a group of young men who have fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen who trapped their fathers and forefathers. Even if we get organized, we are the ones who will be hauled up by the police, beaten and dragged to jail for doing something illegal, they say. There is no leader among them, no one who could help them see things differently. Their fathers are as tired as they are. So the writer suggests them, these people living in Firozabad, she suggests them to form a cooperative, and for that she talked to a group of young men to get out of the clutches of the cruel middlemen who had trapped their elders, fathers and forefathers. So now these young men, they said to the author that if they dared to do something like that, they would be dragged and beaten up by the police. So they would be the people who would be held up by the police and would be beaten up and then finally sent to jail, and their acts would be then considered to be unlawful, okay, inappropriate. Here the writer felt that as these people had no leader, therefore they could not think of doing something out of the box, of doing things in a different manner, okay, of being rebellious maybe. That was because they lacked a leader. Now they all then at last it's told that they all were so tired, all the people, all the young men, they were so tired, similarly like their fathers and forefathers. Let's read further. They talk endlessly in a spiral that moves from poverty to apathy, to greed and to injustice. Listening to them, I see two distinct worlds, one of the family caught in a web of poverty, burdened by the stigma of caste in which they are born, the other a vicious circle of the sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats, and the politicians. Together they have imposed the baggage on the child that he cannot put down. Before he is aware, he accepts it as naturally as his father. To do anything else would mean to dare. So, on being asked about organizing themselves in a cooperative in the paragraph that we read above. So on being asked about organizing themselves in a cooperative by the narrator, the group of young men complained that it was a never-ending, continuous process wherein these people would never get justice. Okay, wherein these people would never get to experience new things other than what they traditionally are supposed to do. So the writer, while listening to the concerns of these people, she envisioned that there were two separate worlds, two distinct worlds. One was of such families where who were stuck in poverty and the pressure of following the traditional profession that is of bangle making according to the caste in which they were born. Okay, one was this. The other world is a never ending cycle of money lenders, middlemen, policemen, law keepers, government officials, and politicians. Now, here the sad part is that both of these worlds had forced these the young boys, to follow the family traditions. Okay, now the young boys, they get into the profession and become a part of the vicious cycle, the vicious circle, even before they realize it. And even if they did anything else, uh, if they did anything else, it meant that they were challenging these two different worlds. Let's read further. And daring is not part of his growing up. When I sense a flash of it in Mukesh, I am cheered. I want to be a motor mechanic, he repeats. He will go to a garage and learn. But the garage is a long way from his home. I will walk, he insists. Do you also dream of flying a plane? He is suddenly silent. No, he says, staring at the ground. In his small murmur, there is an embarrassment that has not yet turned into regret. He is content to dream of cars that he sees hurtling down the streets of his town. Few airplanes flies over Firozabad. Okay. So the narrator here says, and daring is not part of his growing up. So by this she means to say that these young boys living in Firozabad, working as the bangle makers, these boys had not been brought up to be bold so that they could dare not to, they were not bold enough to go against the system. They were not bold enough to dare to go against the system of bangle making. So the writer was happy, in the case of Mukesh, she was happy to sense that at least Mukesh had that spark in him to go against the traditional profession, that is of bangle making. So Mukesh then repeated that he would be a motor mechanic and he wanted to go to a garage and learn the job. Then the narrator asked Mukesh that as the garage was at a distance from his home, then it would be difficult for him to commute. To which Mukesh again insisted that he would walk up to the garage. So we can see here, we can read over here, we are able to understand about Mukesh that he was very much determined to be a motor mechanic. Okay, he was determined to opt some other profession other than bangle making. Then further the narrator asked him if he dreamt of flying planes, to which the boy became silent and he refused to fly a plane as he did not know anything about the planes. Further, it's told that not many planes flew over Firozabad. Therefore, his dreams were also restricted up to them only, because he had just seen cars in Firozabad maybe, so not many planes fly over Firozabad, but therefore he is not very much inclined towards this profession of flying the planes. Okay, so he straight away denies it and he is motivated to be a motor mechanic only. Okay, so this is it about the chapter. We have completed the chapter. We are going to discuss the question answers in our session. Till then, please reread the entire part of this chapter and keep up your doubts for the session. Thank you everyone.